Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all you wonderful, wonderful F1 fans out there, not just in the home of F101 Calgary, Alberta, Canada, but around the world. If you're hearing my voice, you can only do two things. That one, my name is Kelsey, and two, you are listening to the newest edition of F101. Before we get into this episode, I'm going to give you a slight tweak and a massive apology. Last time we had talked, I told you I'd be giving you a special report about the leaving of Christian Horner from Red Bull. And that was well over a week ago, almost 2 weeks ago now. Well, there's a reason why I haven't given you guys anything is because there's nothing to give. Everyone's been super tight-lipped. There's been absolutely no new news besides that he's left. He's at home. He's hanging out with his horses and his wife. He put a social media post out this weekend for the race, riding a horse, saying a different kind of horsepower than usual. And then that's literally been it. There's been no press release from Red Bull, no press release from Max Verstappen, no press release from Christian Horner. There's literally been nothing from anybody across the F1 world. So you guys know about as much as I do. And I've done a deep dive. I've got some contacts. I've listened to everybody, what they've got to say, do some research. And there is literally nothing out there for me to report. Oppose that other than that, he is still not with Red Bull. He's still getting paid by Red Bull, but he is essentially retired from F1 as of right now. There's rumors that there might be some teams that are interested in talking to Christian Horner. But besides that, there's absolutely no new information at all. But I do give you this promise. As soon as there is something that you need to know, I will be letting everybody know on either a special report or on a regular scheduled podcast. So as soon as I know something, you'll know something. But let's get into this weekend right now. It is the Belgian Grand Prix. It is the Spa track that I love the most. They're in Belgium. Weather is what it is. And it is a sprint weekend, but it is a sprint weekend that we haven't had in a very long time. So let's get right into it right now. So for those of you who don't know what a sprint weekend is, essentially what it is it's a second race to the actual race. This equals up more points, but it also gives more wear and tear to the cars, but much more information to each team and each driver on how the track's actually behaving that weekend. Now, when you go to Spa, it's either raining or it's not. So for the sprint qualifying and the sprint race itself, it was actually fairly nice weather. But what some of the teams didn't quite realize is that the only 1 hour of practice time that they do get sometimes is enough and sometimes it's really not. When it comes to Spa, 1 hour of practice time isn't exactly the most opportune time. They need a couple hours. They need a full qualifying session. But qualifying itself is knocked down to about 25 minutes between all three, Q1, Q2, and Q3. They have to drive certain tires. They have to use certain compounds. But the only advantage of having a sprint weekend for some of the teams is that the Parc Fermé rules when it comes to the sprint and the qualifying and the regular qualifying and the race are totally different. So let's say you are Alpine. Okay, so the sprint race in Belgium and Spa is only 14 laps just for how long the track is. If you put a setup on that does not work, that is absolutely atrocious and you end up dead last, you are allowed to work on your car before qualifying. The Parc Fermé rules do not matter. You can essentially rebuild your car from front to back with absolutely no penalties. Now, as soon as you go into qualifying for regular Grand Prix racing, Parc Fermé rules come back into play. You cannot touch your car after that. If you do, you end up with a massive, massive penalty, sometimes points, but most of the time it is just grid spots. So you could be set up and then all of a sudden you're at the very bottom of the pack, things like that. But it does make for a very exciting weekend. It does make for a lot of viewing for the spectators. And most of all for me, it is a lot of fun to watch. It's a lot of information to pass back and forth to you guys. And I just enjoy the excitement of it. I enjoy the extra level. Some people say sprint weekends need to go. I've kind of flip-flopped here and there. Half the time, yes, half the time, no. But in general, I do enjoy the sprint weekends. It's just a little extra added bonus to the weekend, just because, especially when it comes to Spa, I'm going to harp on this a couple times, because of the weather, it can make for either a really exciting race or it can make for a go back to bed and then figure out what happened a couple hours later and they're still waiting for the rain to clear up. It's kind of one of the fifth to sixth to one, half a dozen of the other. Either it's fantastic or it's horrible. But let's get into the sprint weekend right now. The first thing you need to know is that qualifying one, everybody's on medium tires and it's only 12 minutes long. It is 6 minutes shorter than the usual Q1. Now this is good and bad at the same time. Because Spa is such a long track, you don't exactly have a whole lot of time to get out there, get warmed up, and then go for your racing lap. You've got your formation lap kind of thing. That's around about 2.5 minutes. And then you've got your actual warm-up lap, which is going to be about 1:40 And then when you're going for your actual bat out of hell qualifying lap, that's at least another 132 to 140. So before you know it, you don't have a whole lot of time. Now with 20 cars out there, there is some traffic issues. There can be a little bit of impeding, or you just aren't able to get the pace going because you need to because of so many people on the track. And in Q1, for all the drivers across the board, it was a whole lot of little moments because they only had 1 hour of qualifying. A bunch of cars got some brand new specs on there. Ferrari's got a new rear end. Red Bull's got a couple new pieces here and there. Aston Martin's got a brand new set of stuff, aerodynamic pieces. They don't exactly have a whole lot of time to practice with it. They have 1 hour practice session. You go straight into qualifying on the same day for sprint. So these guys are essentially learning these cars as they go, and you can definitely see that. There's a lot of little moments, a lot of hesitation that you're going to see from the drivers in Q1. And it's not coming from some of the rookies. You're seeing it from everybody across the board. From Lewis Hamilton to Max Verstappen, both McLarens even are a little bit hesitant in Q1 just because they just really don't know what their car is going to do yet. But one of the bonus parts of it is because you can do any kind of car modifications because it is qualifying. If you've got time, you can change a few things that are super easy to change. You can change the direction of the rear wing. You can change the front wing a little bit. You can tweak it here and there within qualifying. So for example, Red Bull, okay? They made it through Q1. Obviously, they always do. Yuki Tsunoda barely makes it through Q1, but still, he makes it out of Q1. So then all of a sudden, Max is the first one in the pits. He's in their little mechanic area. And all of a sudden, you see the guys working just a bat out of hell on the back of the car and on the front of the car, specifically on the wings. Well, what's he doing? It ends up being, or it turns out that Max Verstappen and his team figured out that especially in sprint qualifying for the weather they have, they essentially took off every single piece of downforce that they had on the car. They changed the angle of the wing, the front wing. They changed some of the tweaks on the back end of the car, the sway bar, all that kind of stuff. They tweaked as much as they possibly could within the rules and regulations and within the time limit. But then all of a sudden, Max is keeping up with the McLarens in Q1 and then in Q2. And this starts a very interesting parade and a turn of events that all the high-end teams, all the top 5 teams that you've got, even McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, they all of a sudden, and even some and Aston Martin, I do believe as well, they all start taking off as much downforce as they possibly can within the rules and regulations, what they're allowed to in the garage without breaking any kind of rules. And all of a sudden you see qualifying at the end of Q1 and the beginning of Q2 become drastically closer amongst everybody. The cars are reacting a little bit better around the corners because of the weather. There's a little bit of wind. There always is in Spa. And they're not so, they don't need to overcorrect nearly as much. They have more control of the car. You can tell the drivers are feeling a little bit more confident in the car. Just even after 12 minutes, you see what Red Bull does. You follow suit, you take the downforce off, and all of a sudden, everybody's on a little bit more even playing field. Some of these drivers and some of these teams figured this out maybe a little bit too late. And then just the performance of the car itself, not exactly where they needed to be at the end of Q1. Let's get into the bottom 5 of Q1 of the sprint weekend. Number 20, Kimi Antonelli ends up doing a spin out. He ends up spinning out in his last lap. Doesn't lose a whole lot of downforce, doesn't lose a whole lot of time, but he lost about a second and a half, and that just eliminated his entire quali. So it's weird to see Kimi Antonelli out in the first round, very, very last. Colapinto 19th, Hamilton in 18th. Again, another spin out for him as well. The back end, brand new rear, not really working well for Hamilton, at least in sprint qualifying. You can tell he's not happy with the car and the direction that Ferrari is taking it. Nico Hülkenberg in 17th, Alex Albon in 16th. Now, everyone's going to look at Nico Hülkenberg and go, oh, he qualified 17th. What could he possibly do in the sprint? What can he possibly do in the race? Don't count him out. As we all remember, he's picking up points in almost every single race this season, as well as he did go from 18th to 3rd last race in the UK. So never, ever, ever count out Nico Hülkenberg and his car. Q2, again, medium tires for everybody across the board. Now, the reason they put this rule in is because some teams work well on the softs. Some teams only work well on the mediums. Some teams chew through the tires a lot faster than other teams, and some of them just are able to roll with the same tire for the entire race. The whole reason why they're mandating every single team to do the exact same tire, all qualifying, is that it evens out the playing field. Plus, it gives all the teams better information across the board. If you're good enough to make it from Q1 to Q3, you go on the soft tires. Now you have all the information you possibly need for kind of the race, unless it's a torrential downpour and you need to go to wets. You know what the medium tire is going to do. Then you get to figure out what the soft tire is going to do on a lighter car, less fuel, more of a racing setup, racing scenario. It's the end of the race. You're on soft. How fast can you possibly go? What kind of traction are you going to get from these tires? So that's the whole reason why they made them do mediums, and then softs, as well as it's part of F1 and Pirelli's initiative to cut back on the use of tires. So what better way to make sure you don't use as many? You make sure everybody uses the same kind, and you can leave everything else at home pretty much. So Q2, wind picks up a little bit more. Like I said, Max Verstappen all of a sudden has got this change on the Red Bull. He's got much less downforce, and everybody starts to follow terms. The teams were especially taking their rear wing. They weren't necessarily touching the front of the wing with all those little bits and pieces. They were mainly changing the downforce setup to the rear wings. They were making it a lot, and I mean a lot more. I do believe it's shallower, if I'm correct, in which way you need to move in the rear wing to have less downforce. And it seemed to work across the board. You didn't have, I mean, McLaren was still fast, Red Bull was still fast, Ferrari was still up there, but you didn't see them necessarily blow away the rest of the competition nearly as much as you would if everyone was running a different type of wing. Now, was this strategic for Red Bull to show, hey, how effective this can be and maybe move people more into their territory? I don't think so necessarily. I think everybody was kind of at this point in F1, everyone's kind of on the same page of, hey, if this isn't working, let's try this, or let's try that. Let's do this, let's do that. And it just happened to be that Red Bull was the first one that tried this out, and it seemed to work for them. A lot of cars on the lower grid, the mid-pack teams essentially copy bits and pieces of McLaren and Red Bull anyways. So it just kind of made sense that you would follow suit with that kind of aerodynamic direction. But besides that, for Q2, there was absolutely no drama. These guys were really on wheels, on rails, super fast, more confident in the car. Again, you've got another like 8.5 minutes. So to get used to your car, to the now new spec that literally just happened to you, and everybody seemed to be, again, more comfortable with the car. Gabriel Bortoleto, out of absolutely nowhere at some point in Q2, was top 5 in a kick Sauber. So whatever they're doing over in Sauber, whatever the changes are that they made to the rear wing seem to help him, which is great. He needs the confidence. Kick Sauber really does need here we go again. This is what we're doing. This is what we really need to move forward to, which was fantastic. So I'm really happy to see them going in the right direction. Get into the bottom 5 of who didn't make it out of Q2. 15th, Lance Stroll. 14th, Fernando Alonso. 13th, George Russell. Again, not a fantastic day for Mercedes. Whatever upgrades they brought into Spa with the 1 hour of research and this, just not working out very well. Yuki Tsunoda in 12th and Liam Lawson in 11th. Yuki Tsunoda happier now that Christian Horner is gone. Lauren Mecki, the Racing Bulls CEO, manager, team runner, same position as Christian Horner, has officially moved over to Red Bull. So now Yuki knows the guy in charge, and the first order that Lauren Mecki gave out was that everyone had to have the exact same car. So Yuki Tsunoda is working with the brand new upgrades that Max has had for the last couple of races. You can see the confidence building in Yuki. He's a lot happier now, which hopefully means that he has a much better drive than he has at the beginning of the season. Red Bull definitely needs Yuki to pick it up. He needs more points. He needs more consistency. He needs to be more, not necessarily more of a team player, but he needs more contribution to the team itself. So hopefully this helps, but only time will tell. All right, we're moving into Q3 now. Soft tires, 8-minute allotment for Q3. You only got 8 minutes. Okay, so when you look at the time, if you do a warm-up lap, your reconnaissance lap to see if anything's changed, soft tires, you got to get them rubbered in. So that's taking about 2.5 minutes out. All of a sudden you're down to 5.5 minutes, and then you go from there. It's entertaining to watch to a certain point, but when you're trying to collect information and you're trying to make it sound exciting when it's not, the cars didn't go out for 4.5 minutes. They went out at 4:12. Oh, so incredibly frustrating. And it took 1:50 for their first lap. It's kind of like, guys, I know you're in the top 10 and I know this is first sprint, and it kind of just, the top 8 only gets points. Okay. So you go from 8 points to 1. First place gets 8, 8th points, 8th place gets 1 point. So it does make a difference to a certain extent, but guys, come on. If it's 8 minutes in qualifying in Q3, you haven't run these soft tires yet. You don't really know how your car is going to work out. Just do the fucking laps. Come on. It's 4 minutes and 12 seconds of just literally doing nothing. I think some of the guys were taking a little bit of a shut-eye. Max was caught having his eyes closed a little bit, whether he was sleeping or just getting himself focused, and trying to listen to the poor commentators come up with something to talk about for 4.5 minutes before these guys finally make it out on track is it's a little unacceptable to me. I understand if it's weather-wise and you think that the rain's going to pass in 4.5 minutes. Okay, that makes sense. If it's environmental, by all means, yeah, do what you got to do. Get the advantage that you need to. Keep your car dry. Keep the tires as good as they possibly can. But if you're just going to sit there for 4 minutes and 12 seconds and do literally sweet fuck all, and then it ends up being essentially what it ends up being is a 1-lap shootout. Everybody does their warm-up lap, and then you go for it. It's like, what's the point? Like, it's so boring as hell. Why not just draw straws and see who goes first? Qualifying Q3, it's fast, it's great, it's entertaining to watch once they finally get going. The cars are on point for the sprint race this weekend. And it was finally entertaining to watch once they finally got going. But besides that, it was just, again, 4 minutes and 12 seconds of them just sitting there doing nothing. Pictures of the car. They were talking about some of the qualifying laps in Q1 and Q2, like literally finding shit to talk about until these guys finally got out. But top 10 in Q3, we're going to go from 10th and we are going to go to the first. Gabriel Bortoleto in 10th, Isaac Hadjar in 9th, Pierre Gasly in 8th, Ollie Behrman in 7th, Carlos Sainz in 6th, Ocon in 5th, Leclerc in 4th, Norris in 3rd, Max Verstappen in 2nd, and Oscar Piastri 1st. Again, the McLarens are on a roll. They're super, super fast, but the timing between the McLarens, all of a sudden something is changing. Piastri is substantially faster than Norris, and we're talking about like a half a second at this point. And Norris is trying. He wants pole. He wants to get more points. He wants to do all this. But whatever they're doing to Piastri's car, Norris's car is just not keeping up. They're not doing papaya rules at this point in the series. They've won the constructors, and at this point, it's drivers' championship points, right? So they're within, I think it's like 16 points now. So it's just drivers, do your bidding. Like, do whatever you need to do. Teams are with their drivers. Drive safe so you don't wreck and harm the team. But besides that, you are on your own, race how you decide to. And whatever Oscar Piastri's camp is doing is drastically better than what Lando Norris's camp is doing. And that sets us up for a fantastic sprint qualifying. Again, for the sprint weekend, what you're going to do is you've got the sprint qualifying is officially done. This leads us into the sprint race, which an hour and a half after the sprint race, they're going to go directly into the actual Grand Prix qualifying. Now, this is when the teams are allowed to make any changes that they have figured out between the sprint race and qualifying. They can literally redo the entire car if they have time from front to back, top to bottom. But most of the time, these guys make a little bit of change here. They change the gear ratios there, a little bit less aerodynamic downforce, a little bit more. Whatever they end up finding out in an actual race circumstance, these guys are allowed to change for the actual race of the qualifying. So let's get into the sprint race right now. Fantastic weather, blue skies, sunshine, a little bit of wind, but not too much. Dry track across the board. Everybody on the soft tires, as everybody knew it would be. It's only 14 laps. This is a long track. So 1, 2, 3, 5 lights and away we go. And these guys were absolutely on the gas from start to finish. And a little bit of a surprise that Max Verstappen, a little bit slow off the end in comparison to the McLarens, but he knows this track like the back of his hand. I'm sure if you challenged him to, he could drive this course with a blindfold on better than anybody else. He makes fantastic work of Piastri, making him go left, then right. Does he have enough speed, enough downforce? Is the setup of the Red Bull a lot faster or at least equal to the McLaren? The answer all the way across the board is absolutely it is. Makes fantastic moves, ends up passing Piastri 14 laps later. Not a whole lot happens after that. Spoiler alert, he does his job. He keeps Piastri behind him. He did have to work for it though. You can see Max hasn't had to defend from a driver like this in a very, very long. And then the question comes up, is he defending from the driver? Is he defending from the car? I think in this case, in this sprint weekend, it was definitely a 50-50 shot between both of them. Piastri is a fantastic driver. He knows what he's doing. We all know the McLaren is fast. It's on rails. So what's Max got to do? He's got to pull out every single defensive trick he's got in that book to keep that McLaren behind him for 14 laps. Essentially what it was qualifying laps. You saw how fast the car could go. You can see how well those little aerodynamic changes worked. And they worked well for Max when he's up front. He struggled a little bit when he was behind Piastri. It was a little bit of dirty air messing with the car just a little bit. He needed that downforce to pass the McLaren a little bit faster, but overall they made good choices with the change to the car. It was more even than I thought it was going to be across the board for all 20 drivers. Nobody crashed out. Pierre Gasly doesn't end up driving at all. He ends up getting an oil leak, unfortunately, so he wasn't able to participate, period. But across the 19 drivers, it was really even. It was really fast. It was really great to watch. All 14 laps, and it took like 27 minutes, if that. And then we were done. So let's get into the top 8 for points. We're going to start from 8th, and we're going to go to first. Isaac Hadjar picking up, I believe it's his first points in a sprint race, ends up being 8th. Ollie Behrman in 7th, Carlos Sainz in 6th, Esteban Ocon in 5th, Leclerc in 4th, Norris in 3rd, Piastri in 2nd, and Max Verstappen ends up getting points in the sprint race, ends up winning it, gets a whole 8 points. Isaac Hadjar getting 1 point for being 8th. Hey, points across the board, no matter what. You need the points, you get the points, it's helping the teams. We're officially past the halfway mark of the 2025 season, so especially when it comes to the mid-grid teams, so from like 5th to 10th, every single point counts. Now, 1 point can mean the difference between being 5th and 6th in the Constructors' Championships, which means millions of dollars for that team in sponsorship money, which helps them being able to upgrade their car for 2026 or the facilities in the future or whatever the case may be. So every single point counts. So think of it this way. The 1 point that Isaac Hadjar picked up in the sprint race could mean that Racing Bulls officially catches Kick-Sauber for 6th, or maybe it just puts them on a roll and they pick up another 29 points and get into 5th behind Williams. You never know, but every single point counts. And this weekend, this podcast is going to be clipping along. We're going to move right into actual GP qualifying and a massive, massive change. Everybody went from no downforce for the sprint race and sprint qualifying to all of a sudden teams have figured out, okay, it works in the short term, but in the long term, they did the math, they did the simulations that they possibly could. It's not going to work. So all of a sudden, more teams are adding downforce to their actual car. Red Bull being one of them, Aston Martin being the other one, Ferrari, they changed the back end that they had the new upgrades on, tweaked it a little bit. They add a little bit more downforce. Hopefully this will make more, it'll make more of an entertaining race. It'll make them more stable. Mercedes, on the other hand, they didn't touch their cars one bit. They took only a little bit of downforce off. They figured it would help them in qualifying. It didn't really help them in the sprint race, like whatsoever. They didn't really post all that well. They didn't get any points, period. Top 8. They didn't even make top 12, I do believe. So they tweaked it just a little bit more, and it didn't help. Mercedes is still having a ridiculously hard weekend to keep up. Antonelli is gone in Q1 all over again. It's more of a realistic stake of where this rookie should be. I don't think it speaks to his driving abilities. I think it speaks more towards the developmental angle of Mercedes. Antonelli, when he first hopped in, he got points in the first 4 races, which was great. He is still the leading rookie by a massive, massive margin. He is still showing great promise for Mercedes. Is he still the second coming of Max Verstappen? He was, but he is not anymore, strictly because he's got the skill, but he doesn't have the car underneath him. And let's be honest, if you're the second coming of Max Verstappen, you are not Max Verstappen at that age, where Max was still winning races with I don't want to call it a shit car, but he was able to make magic out of a whole lot of nothing back in the day. And Kimi Antonelli has the ability to do that, but I just think he's just not used to Mercedes 100% yet. It's still his first season. It's a half season, and the direction the car is going, I believe they're doing it more towards a George Russell type of setup than it is Kimi Antonelli. And Toto Wolff, I mean, he knows what he's doing. He is now officially the longest running team manager in F1 history right now since Christian Horner left. But it's one of those, he was doing so well. Then they brought some upgrades, and George Russell got a little bit better. Kimi got a little worse. They brought out more upgrades to make it even. George got even better. Kimi got even a little bit worse. And then you see in this case, Kimi Antonelli gets kicked out of Q1 in 18th spot. It's full qualifying times. It's full qualifying setup. They weren't wasting any time. And he's struggling so very hard. George Russell, on the other hand, he makes it into Q3, but what's happening to Antonelli right now? What are they doing to him? What's in his mind? What's he thinking? How is he able to get himself out of this funk? How is he able to get back to the form that he had at the very beginning of the season? Now, at least in the early stages of Q1, it was quite a surprise where Max ended up. So he didn't top Q1, which is fine. He got top 5 by the time everything was all said and done. But because of all the changes that they made, I don't know. We never found out if they added more downforce, if they kept the car where it needed to be, because they learned from last week when they were in Great Britain, when they were at Silverstone, they paid more attention to the actual weather forecast. Max still seems to be on par with McLaren, with McLaren this weekend, at least in qualifying 1 and 2. He was able to not necessarily beat them, but he was definitely able to keep up. He's keeping up with the time where if you were in a race scenario, he is splitting the McLarens and making both of them work hard to stay where they are. Whatever they figured out, they need to stay on this track. They need to stay on this direction of find that middle ground of you're not going to be as fast as McLaren, but you don't want to be as slow as Ferrari. You don't want to have that many tweaks and issues and all this kind of stuff. And for God's sake, pay attention more to the weather, because this European leg of F1, you have a lot of very unpredictable weather. It can change on a dime, especially at Silverstone. And anybody that's watched Spa before, literally the weather in Spa can change on a dime. And it's not a little bit of a change. It is torrential downpour. It is potential flooding. It is all that kind of stuff. So you got to pay attention to the environment around you. And Max and the team, I think they finally learned their lesson. So he's definitely able to keep up more in Q1 and Q2 with McLaren, but only time will tell on that last run, on that last lap with the no time left, where Red Bull will actually end up. So your bottom 5 out of Q1 for the actual Grand Prix qualifying: Lance Stroll in 20th, Fernando Alonso in 19th, Kimi Antonelli in 18th, Colapinto in 16th, and because of track limits and no track time given, Lewis Hamilton out at the first hurdle in 16th. He is so not happy with the car. The new upgrades they've brought to Ferrari, I think, is more along the lines of how Leclerc drives and definitely not how Hamilton's drive. And it's pretty evident, it's pretty clear that what should have been a dream combo, which should have been a dream team at this point, is falling apart at the seams. Leclerc is happy-ish. Like, you're never really super ecstatic when you work at Ferrari unless you're winning everything. But the honeymoon phase for Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari never happened. It was kind of like all the media before he started. There's been no consistency with his car. There's been no consistency in his driving. One week he's amazing. He makes top 5. He almost gets podium or gets podium. The next week he's out in Q1 and he's making more and more work for him than he actually needs. Every single update they bring to the car seems to make him slower or make him more upset. The communication between himself and the engineer just keeps getting worse and worse. They get shorter conversations. They're just not happy with this trade at all. It's a good thing that Lewis Hamilton doesn't exactly have he doesn't have a decade-long contract, but still, this is not going to be a good first year for him. Hopefully the changes in 2026 or for the rest of the season will make him at least a little happier and help with his performance. But as of right now, it's a match that should work on paper, but is one of the worst driver signings of this season, if not of the last couple of decades. Right along into Q2, not a whole lot to talk about. The weather stayed nice. Not a whole lot of huge surprises in timing. These guys have got the cars dialed in as they normally would. A little bit more oversteering and understeering than what you're used to in Spa. The wind did pick up a little bit. They do have gravel on the track, on the side of the track. So every once in a while, when a big enough wind gust comes up, it puts some gravel on the track. These guys have a little bit of an oversteer, a little bit of understeer to make up for it. But overall, it was a really, really fast session. So we're just going to dive right into the bottom 5. And 15th was Carlos Sainz, Nico Hülkenberg in 14th, Pierre Gasly in 13th, Ollie Behrman in 12th, and Esteban Ocon in 11th. It's kind of like the middle of the road guys in the middle of the road pack for middle of the road timing, like nothing super surprising. Nico Hülkenberg looking much, much more comfortable in his Sauber for the actual qualifying opposed to the sprint. So look for big things from him in this track. He's got an okay history. He's obviously never won here before, but he does round about the middle of the pack, depending on what kind of car setup they give him. He does have a tendency to get the best out of this car in this kind of situation, especially with the tumultuous weather that is coming up. It's Nico. You never know what you're going to get. Q3, it was McLaren versus McLaren again. These guys are ridiculously fast. But again, like I had mentioned before, in the sprint qualifying and the sprint race, you're starting to see that car difference in actual qualifying situations as well. Oscar Piastri, either he's blowing them away or it's much, much closer than it should be. Okay. Lando Norris, no idea what's happened to his setup. I don't know what's happened to his crew. There's been no reports of any major changes. It's just, I don't know what's going on with the car. It should technically be the same, but at the same time, you don't quite know what you're going to get from Lando Norris week in and week out. Is it actually the car? Is it him going, I'm not the golden boy anymore? Or is he just working through something that a little bit of a, I don't want to call it a mid-season slump, because both guys and the team is still doing very well, but maybe he's relaxed a little bit too much mentally, going, okay, we've got the constructors, so the team is happy, so I don't have to try nearly as hard. And he's trusting his own driving skills to catch up to Piastri, which is fine. Have confidence in yourself. But at the same time, when you're 16 points behind, you still want to push as much as you possibly can to get first. You don't want to get second. You don't want to get third. You want to get first. And yes, there's still a lot of season to go. Maybe he's playing the long game, that mental long game of he doesn't want to get too stressed out too early, potentially. But you can see a drastic difference from Piastri to Norris, depending on the driving track, not even depending on the track or the circumstances. It's just Piastri seems so much faster than Norris right now. Another driver who's starting to get a little bit more confidence in his skills, Yuki Tsunoda, making the top 10, which is fantastic. And he places, I think he places like 9th by the time everything's all said and done. It's about time, I should say. Yuki, he's a little happier this weekend. He did okay in the sprint, doesn't end up picking up any points, but you can see the confidence starting to build even over one race, even over one weekend. This is the first weekend, first race without Christian Horner. So it's kind of like, what do you guys actually have in the tank when the original isn't here anymore, right? So Yuki Tsunoda driving with a little bit more confidence. He seemed a little bit more sure of the car this weekend. Didn't seem drastically out of pace. Again, he's got the new upgrade package, either unintentionally or intentionally. He's got the same car as Max now, from front to back, top to bottom. It's just all about driver skill and driver confidence at this point. It's nice to see. I'm not getting too excited as a Red Bull fan to see quite yet. I got to see a little bit more consistency. If we've got 5 races in and all of a sudden he's in the top 10 all the time, he's picking up points that he should have been taking at the beginning of the season, then definitely it was, okay, it's the car. He's feeling more confident. Okay, we're going to make a little bit of a push to the end of the season. Then I'll get a little bit more excited. But as of right now, it's the same setup. You're looking good. You're feeling confident, but what can you actually do when it comes to race time? I mean, good thing it wasn't race time. Max Verstappen puts on new tires just before the last run. Jesus, no grip on the start lap. He ends up fishtailing a little bit, loses a second and a half on one little over, not quite an overspin, but a little bit of a fishtail, in which he could not recover. He had a really great lap. He was fastest in the middle sector, almost fastest at the very end. But with that timing, he wasn't able to get top of the grid, not even close. He was definitely outraced by both McLarens and the Ferraris today. So not exactly the best day for Max Verstappen, but a solid day for Red Bull all the way around. So let's get into the top 10 for how the Belgian Grand Prix is going to start. Ollie Behrman in 9th, which is fantastic for him. He needs to be, Gabriel Bortoleto, not Behrman, Bortoleto. Kick Sauber is starting to do something right for a mid-grid team. It's fantastic to see that he's in the top 10. Now, can he keep this position come race day? Qualifying is one thing, but actual race pace, distance, and strategy is totally different when it comes time to game day. Yuki Tsunoda in 9th, Liam Lawson in 8th, Isaac Hadjar in 7th, Alex Albon in 5th. George Russell gets bumped down to 6th. Alex Albon, literally the last-ditch effort, ends up displacing him and gets into 5th place. Max Verstappen in 4th, Leclerc in 3rd, Piastri in 2nd, and Norris in 1st. Now, don't get it twisted. It literally came down to the last minute. A couple of corners, Piastri had a little bit of an overcorrect. Lando Norris was able to capitalize on that mistake from Oscar Piastri, which is why he ends up getting pole. But it is definitely a man-on-man, car versus car in McLaren right now. So literally race day, who knows what the hell is going to happen, because it can be the best race that McLaren has ever had and Lando Norris has ever had, or it can be the best race that McLaren's ever had, but Piastri just shows even more dominance by the end of the race. So all the qualifying is done. Sprint race is done. We've got our places. We're in Parc Fermé now. It is officially time for round 13. It is time for the Belgian Grand Prix. We're talking 18 turns, 4.35 miles, top speed of 359 kilometers an hour, 44 laps. Again, One of the shortest races of the season, but again, look how long that lap time is. And just look how long that lap is. It's an interesting setup. Weather rolls in, and right off the bat, we've got 4 cars in pit lane to change your setups. 4 teams breaking park firme. Fernando Alonso, Kimi Antonelli, Lewis Hamilton, and Carlos Sainz. All of them starting in the pit lane, all broke park firme rules so they can change their car setups. They looked at the weather. Is it enough downforce? Is it too much downforce? Well, they ended up changing to a little bit less downforce because there's a song that some of you may be familiar with, and I do apologize that I'm about to sing this part, but here comes the rain again. It's Spa. It's the middle of their summertime. It absolutely started to pour. Pour enough where they did, when it came time to start the race, they do their formation laps and they come around and they start the race, right? Well, the formation lap was behind the safety car. There was so much rain. Everyone's either on intermediates or full wets at this point, and they're just trying to disperse as much water off that track as humanly possible, and it did not work. It just rained and rained. And this is where the 50-50 mark with the Spa race comes into play. It was an hour-and-a-half rain delay. Okay, the race was red flagged. Everybody got out. They were staying dry, and they were just waiting for the rain to stop. Just when they thought the rain was going to stop, it started up again. That much heavier, that much harder. What kind of race are we going to have? If it races too much, or if it rains too much, they will only give so many points out. If you can't do 3/4 of the race, you only get 3/4 of the points. Or they red flag the race. They cancel like they did a couple of years ago because of the flooding, so on and so forth. So what the hell are you going to do? And the race clock doesn't start until the first lap is taken. The race begins, you cross the line, then you have 3 hours to go. We have seen weather where it is down to, okay, you only have 3 hours, you only have 2 hours left, and you're just going to race until the time runs out. You don't catch the full laps, but wherever you finish when that time runs out is what you get for points. Is Spa going to end up being like this all over again? Well, the answer, thankfully, after an hour-and-a-half rain delay is no. Safety car rolling start, which is the safest option in my opinion. If you do a standing start, you lose your grip, you instantly lose your tire temperature, all this kind of stuff, and it just gets really, really dangerous. So the formation, we're just going to call it a formation lap again, and a rolling start was 4 laps long, trying to get the track dry, trying to move the water off the track. And by the time you watched it, by the time second lap came around, you were starting to see dry spots all over again. Like you could see the track drying out that fast. But then they still kept 2 more laps. And some of the drivers were like, hey, let's go already. We're wasting tires. We're killing the grip on these tires because you can't pass. You can't go fast. So you're keeping no temperature whatsoever. And you have to find the puddles on the road. Some of the guys did it. By the time they started on lap 5, the question automatically popped into your mind. You have 39 laps left. When are you coming in for regular tires? Are you going to come in for regular tires, or are you just going to beat the crap out of your intermediates until the end of the race? It was definitely, you could see the panic strategy in the teams when they were doing the shots. If you listen to some of the teams over the radio to their drivers on F1 TV, you could hear they weren't quite sure. They were asking the drivers a ton. How's the tires feeling? How wet is it? How's the weather? What do you think? Let us know your opinions. Literally just back and forth and back and forth. It was a little hectic to listen to. Some drivers are going to get it right. Some drivers are going to get it wrong. It just depends on when you pull the car in for what type of tire do you want. One team that finally got it right to making their driver at least a little happier was Ferrari. Whatever setup Lewis Hamilton had, whatever changes he made before the beginning of the race, 100% helped him. After lap 5, when they were able to go, in the first 4 laps, once they were able to green light and go, he climbed 4 spots. It was 1 spot per lap. And even with the laps, he passed 2 guys at the same time. Whatever he did, whatever he had in his mindset, whatever instructions they gave him, he absolutely 100% just went with it. It was nice to see. You can see the 2020, 2021 aggression Lewis Hamilton driving, but in a Ferrari. He was passing in spots that you have no deal passing. He was giving pressure to the drivers ahead of him, making them make mistakes, faking them out, making really solid turns, driving the way a 7-time world champion needs to drive in this kind of team. It was nice to see. He does make it into the top 10, doesn't end up winning the race, but ends up winning driver of the day, thank God. And he ends up really showing his potential again. It's kind of like he's proving himself all over again. from a shit qualifying and shit sprint race and all this kind of stuff. It's like he has to reprove to himself every single race that he is capable of driving in Ferrari. So he keeps his confidence, so he doesn't lose his contract, whatever the case may be. This was one of those races. It was pure classic Lewis Hamilton. So we're only 5 laps in, and then all of a sudden, lap 10, teams are thinking about dry tires. By the time lap 12 comes around, over half the field comes in for new tires. Now, here's the question. You've got your racing line. You can clearly see it. This is where the guys race. This is everything else is wet. Now, the only question is, what type of compound are you going to go on? If you go on the medium at Spa, you've got like 33 laps left at this point. It's going to chew through your tires pretty good. And unless you're really good at keeping your tires alive, you may have to do another pit stop by the end of the race. If you do, you're going to lose massive time and you're going to lose massive positions. Or soft is definitely not in play here. You do not have enough tire life in the softs to go 33 laps at Spa. But then it's the weather temp and the track temp and conditions. Does the hard tire have enough grip? It's got the life, but will you have enough consistency and fast enough timing to actually use the hard tire where it needs to be? And that was a decision that McLaren needed to make. Now, again, it's Piastri's team driving against Norris's team, and they both made their own separate decisions. Pre-race conference, pre-race talk, Zach Brown said these guys are they're driving for themselves. No papaya rules. Just don't make the team look bad. Don't crash, don't lose points, but you guys are kind of on your own. And this is where it was really interesting to see. It was staying when they switched off from intermediates. Piastri goes on mediums. Lando Norris goes on hards 1 lap later. So he's got newer tires than Piastri does. Will the hard tire last long enough or have a fast enough lifespan? And Norris he can't make any mistakes from here on out to catch Piastri. Piastri's way ahead of everybody else, like 17, 18 seconds. And then the 2 McLarens are just by themselves. This is a race against those 2. Everybody else behind them, they go on their mediums. A couple of the lower end teams, I'm using that in air quotes, like Haas, Aston Martin, they go on hards. They go for a little bit of a run. They do pretty well on the hards. It shows the life and the tire stability in Spa when they go that long on a hard. It wasn't a horrible tire. If you had a fast car and you were on hards, you were able to have a fast time. These guys, they're middle of the road, so it wasn't too bad. I think it was a great decision for the mid-grid teams to go to the mediums instead of the hard, just because you want to get to the points. You want to test out your car. You want to collect as much data as you possibly can. A guy who went on mediums that kind of got stuck where he was, unfortunately, Max Verstappen. He qualified in 4th. He finished in 4th. He was able to get 1.5 seconds to Leclerc, but Leclerc's setup and his driving ability and just the overall pace of the Ferrari today, Red Bull was not able to keep up at all. Max, he did his best. He had a massive time between himself and George Russell, who ended up being in 5th, but it was kind of like a race of his own. He ends up catching some solid points. Top 5 is always a result, just not quite the result that Red Bull needs. Now, strategy-wise, this race was super, super entertaining. It had its entertaining moments, but Spa this year was a bit of a snooze fest. Not going to lie, I'm making it sound way more interesting than it actually was. Because of the weather, because of the strategies and the talking back and forth and the teams deciding what they need to do, and essentially everybody doing everything at the exact same time, it was a bit of a DRS train. It was a bit of a snooze fest. It wasn't exactly the most and then throw in an hour and a half rain delay. It wasn't exactly the most interesting Spa I've ever watched. It's still one of my favorite tracks just because of the unpredictability and how these guys deal with it. But I mean, was it one of my top 5 races or even top 10 races this season, even though we've had 13 rounds? No, not really. It was entertaining. It was good to watch. Still more entertaining than Monaco. Let's say that. But a little bit of a snooze fest. Let's get into the top 10 now for your Belgian Grand Prix. In 10th spot, Pierre Gasly out of nowhere, doing all the quiet work, getting himself in the top 10, getting himself some points. Gabriel Bortoleto started in 10th, ends up getting a spot. He's in 9th. Liam Lawson in 8th. Lewis Hamilton in 6th. Alex Albon in 7th. George Russell in 5th. Max Verstappen in 4th. Leclerc in 3rd. Oscar Piastri had more than enough pace, more than enough speed. Lando Norris messed up a couple times. Piastri takes the number 1 spot. Lando Norris ends up getting 2nd. Good race from McLaren all the way around, but Piastri's showing his dominance not only amongst the grid, but in the McLaren team as well. Let's get into the drivers' championship points. Esteban Ocon in 10th with 29 points. Nico Hulkenberg's in 9th with 37. Alex Albon's in 8th with 54 points. Antonelli's in 7th with 63 points. Hamilton is in 6th with 104 points. Leclerc is in 5th with 139. Russell's in 4th with 157. Max Verstappen is sitting solid 3rd with 185. Norris is in 2nd with 250 points, and Oscar Piastri with the win is still in 1st with 266 points. 16 points difference in the McLaren barn. It's going to be really close from here until the end of the season. Even if one of the drivers mess up, both of them doesn't really matter. It's going to be close from here until the end. Constructors Championships, again, we're going to go from 10th to 1st. Alpine's dead last in 10th with 20 points. Haas is in 9th with 35 points. Aston Martin's in 8th with 36 points. Racing Bulls is in 7th with 41. 3 points behind Kick Sauber, who's in 6th with 43 points. Then there's Williams in 5th with 70 points. Red Bull is in 4th with 192 points. Mercedes is in 3rd with 220 points. Ferrari is in 2nd with 248 points. And the 2025 Constructors Championship, McLaren is in 1st with 516 points. Technically, and I mean technically and mathematically speaking, McLaren hasn't won the championship yet. They can still lose it to Ferrari. Now, in what world that actually happens at this point, I have absolutely no idea. But according to the experts and the pundits and the mathematicians, McLaren can still. I doubt it. I don't believe it. McLaren is a 2025 Constructors Championship. Going into the rookie standings now, I've taken Liam Lawson out of the rookie standings just because he officially has had enough entries into Formula One. He's got enough experience. I don't believe he's a rookie anymore. So these standings have changed a little bit. Number 1, Antonelli is still in 1st with 63 points. Isaac Hadjar's in 2nd with 22 points. Ollie Behrman's in 3rd with 8 points. Bortoletto's in 4th with 6 points. And then in 5th and 6th tied collectively, Colapinto and Jack Doohan both have 0 points. Now, is it fair to consider and to put Jack Doohan in the rookie standings? Technically, yes. Technically, no. He did have half a season, if that, did before he got kicked. But he is still considered a rookie. You got to finish a full season to be a non-rookie driver anymore. I do believe that we're going to see Jack Doohan again in the future in F1. Now, what team and when, I have absolutely no idea, but we are adding another team in 2026. So Cadillac will need a backup driver. Rumors still have it that it's going to be, now actually new rumors, I should say, that Checo Perez and Valtteri Bottas will sign for Cadillac. Now, nothing's been signed yet, but everybody, and I mean everybody, is either leaning towards this is what's going to happen. And these are reliable sources. And there's just enough little hints dropped by Valtteri Bottas and just enough hearsay and enough not quite gray area evidence to say that both of these guys will be in Cadillac. But I think sooner rather than later, they're going to announce their 2 drivers. And I do believe Jack Doohan will be the backup driver for McLaren. He needs the experience. He needs to be able to get on the track, and it'll free up another space for him and somebody else. So I hope that is what happens to Jack Doohan. Well, that is it for the Belgian Grand Prix breakdown. Next race, August 1st to 3rd, it is the Hungarian Grand Prix, round 14, non-sprint weekend, which is fantastic. You guys don't have to get up super early. So let's get right into it. Friday, full practice 1 is at 5:30 in the morning. Full practice 2 is at 9 a.m. Saturday, full practice 3 is at 4:30 a.m. I will be skipping that one. Thank you very much. Qualifying is at 8 a.m. on the 2nd, and then on the 3rd, race Sunday, pre-race is at 6 a.m. The race itself is 7 a.m. The Hungarian Grand Prix, it's a classic. It's a really good race. Nothing too crazy usually happens at it, but it's still, if you are that racing fan that just loves solid, fast racing, good strategies, and a lot of clinical driving, this is definitely the race for you not to miss. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for listening. Again, a massive, massive thank you going out to all the fans. If it wasn't for you guys, I would not have as much fun doing this as I am. The more subscribers I get, and officially the more people that listen, they boost my numbers, and maybe someday I might actually be able to get to make money off of this. But as of right now, I'm having a whole lot of fun keeping everybody abreast on the world of F1 through the 2025 season, through the 26, and hopefully into the long time future. So thank you very much for everybody out there. And as always, keep those tires spinning and the engine revving. I will talk to you guys next time on F101.